how we start this out is with the third step prayer, sir.
Which is on page, and I hope everybody's got their big book with them. Just let Willie. Okay. Page 63, third step prayer. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. I do thy will always.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. All right, Rob. We are on page 92. We're going to start right at where we stopped at, which is if you are satisfied that he is a real alcoholic.
If you are satisfied that he is a real alcoholic, begin to dwell on the hopeless feature of the malady. Show him from your own experience how the queer mental conditions surrounding that first drink prevents normal functioning of the willpower. Don't, at this stage, refer to this book unless he has seen it and wishes to discuss it. And be careful not to brand him as a conclusions. If he sticks to the idea that he can still control his drinking, tell him that possibly he can, if he is not too alcoholic, but insists that if he is severely afflicted, there may be little chance that he can recover by himself.
Yeah, we're actually talking about somebody that's probably just coming out from a spree or a bender, still jittery, probably very remorseful, and has a bit of guilt, wants to recover and be sober. And at this point, we're trying to introduce some of the symptoms of alcoholism. And again, it's just touching on the surface at this point, talking about that inability to stay away from that first drink, which is the malady of the mind, and how the normal willpower isn't enough to stop us. They don't necessarily want you to refer to this book, but perhaps so. I think at this point, it's one of those that you've got in your hip pocket so that if you do need it, you bring it out and you can start talking about alcoholism as a whole. The idea here is you also don't want to be the one to brand him as an alcoholic. This is one of those themes that'll go throughout the book itself. It's not for us to say that this person is alcoholic. It's up to them to call themselves alcoholic. It's part of their coming to terms with their disease and drinking problem. And they need to be the ones to come to terms with that on their own. It's not for us to say. We can refer around it, perhaps, maybe, it might be kind of thing. But at the same time, if you've got some pushback on them that they think that they can control things, then basically you want to just be available, let them know that you're there, let them know that you've got a solution that has worked for thousands upon thousands of people, and that you'd be more than happy to be a partner in their recovery if in fact they want to do that. Rob?
Yeah, I was just reading A Comes of Age, and there was an interesting little tidbit in there that I picked up, and I just want to read it. And I put it in the chat, but I just want to read it. Thus, when the time comes that members describe themselves as alcoholics, society ceases to regard them as such. Yet it is only at the moment when a member ceases to drink that he asserts the right to describe himself as an alcoholic. And it's when we get better that we describe ourselves that we're alcoholics usually. And I just found it quite interesting. It was one of the talks that Bernard Smith, one of the trustees, a non-alcoholic trustee of AA, gave. And if you don't find it interesting, oh well, it was only a minute out of your life. But the thing is that we can't do anything for anybody that still thinks that they can control and enjoy their drinking. The first step basically is admitting defeat. And admitting to the fact that, we can't do it ourselves. We are beyond human aid. That literature came from the book A Comes of Age, just in case everybody. And it was near the end of the book, and it was a talk by Bernard Smith, who, as I say, is a trustee and a non-alcoholic trustee at that. So just so you know. And let's continue. So continue to speak of alcoholism as an illness, a fatal malady. Talk about the conditions of body and mind which accompany it. Keep his attention focused mainly on your personal experience. Explain that many are doomed who never realize their predicament. Doctors are rightly loath to tell alcoholic patients the whole story unless it will serve some good purpose. But you talk to him about the hopelessness of alcoholism because you offer a solution. You will soon have your friends admitting he has many, if not all, of the traits of the alcoholic. If his own doctor is willing to tell him that he is alcoholic, so much the better. Even though your protege may not have entirely admitted his condition, he has become very curious to know how you got well. Let him ask you that question, if you will. Tell him exactly what happened to you. Stress the spiritual feature freely. If the man be agnostic or atheist, make it emphatic that he does not have to agree with your conception of God. He can choose any conception he likes, provided it makes sense to him. The main thing is that he be willing to believe in a power greater than himself and that he live by spiritual principles.
Absolutely. There's a lot of italicized words here in this particular paragraph, but let's talk about the first part of it. And talking about the two symptoms, there's just a light reference to the malady and the conditions of the body and mind. So we're already starting to introduce those two symptoms at this point, not specifically to go into much detail, but at least talking about the fact that the body and the mind are, in fact, a part of this. Now, it's stay focused on your personal experiences. There's a reason for that. You want to make sure that you're trying to still make that connection with him and or her, and make sure you know your story. So just tell the story and let them kind of come along with you. It's that persuade through involvement idea that I've introduced in the past. And then that in and of itself is, as you persuade through involvement, you do in fact earn the right to advance to the next step, which is having your friend, him or her, admitting that they are perhaps alcoholic, or at least they have the traits that are pointing towards that. It does reference a doctor here. I don't know. I guess I led off with my doctors when I talked to them about my alcoholism. So they didn't really talk, they didn't brand me with alcoholism. They just agreed with me when I told them that I was alcoholic. So I'm not sure if a doctor is going to be, it depends on the doctor, I guess, as to whether or not they're going to do that. But the whole idea here is that it's not your place, not for you to brand them as an alcoholic. It's up to them to come to that conclusion themselves. And if they start asking questions, then they're curious. That's good. Start answering those questions as best you can, and you can talk about yourself and reference things going forward with that. Now, there's another reference here with regard to being agnostic or atheist. Obviously, we've got a lot of people that come into to Alcoholics Anonymous, and they're a little resistant and or not willing to accept the idea of God, or so you can basically talk to them about their own conception, and you call it a higher power, if you will. But that's something that you want to at least put them at ease about. They don't have to agree with your conception of God or your own higher power. They can come up with their own. The idea here is that there's going to be a spiritual element that is going to be a part of their recovery, and they have to They just got to be willing to believe. And again, we'll reference that later as well. That'll come up again and again with regard to this willingness to believe. Rob?
Yep. Your prospect may belong to a religious denomination. His religious education and training may be far superior to yours. In that case, he's going to wonder how you can add anything to what he already knows. But he will be curious to learn why his own convictions have not worked and why yours seem to work so well. It may be an example of the truth that faith alone is insufficient. To be vital, faith must be accompanied by self-sacrifice and unselfish, constructive action. Let him see that you are not there to instruct him in religion. Admit that he probably knows more about it than you do, but call to his attention the fact that however deep his faith and knowledge, he could not have applied it, or he would not drink. Perhaps your story will help him see where he has failed to practice the very precept he knows so well. We represent no particular faith or denomination. We're dealing only with general principles common to most denominations.
Yeah. So that this is, again, a reference to trying to compartmentalize, if you will, religion in one box and the spiritual nature of our recovery in another box. They are related in that there is a reference to God, but I would hesitate to say that there's much more than that. I underlined a couple of things in here. He may be an example of the truth that faith alone is insufficient. That's one of those things that we kind of look out for. Most of us have faith, but we've also found that that was insufficient in order to recover. And then the next sentence is, to be vital, faith must be accompanied by self-sacrifice and unselfish constructive action. So it's got to be some kind of courageous movement in that direction, to be unselfish and constructive with regard to the action of trying to recover. And try not to get into a discussion about religion. In fact, try to deflect that as best you can to say, one, they probably know more about it than you do, regardless of whether they do or not. It's a good way to get them to a point where they're not feeling like this is some type of a religious intervention, and as you tell your story, as far as your spiritual awakening and the experience that you had, they can start to make some connections with that. Rob?
Yep. It's an incredible thing that Bill does, and he teaches us how to deal with other people. Not to talk to them from a mountaintop, talk down to them, talk to them. One alcoholic, talk to another. What does it say all through the book? That Bill was able to get through to Dr. Bob. Why? Because one alcoholic talked to another. Doctors weren't able to get through to us. Psychiatrists, all these other people that mean well. Family that try to, you frothy emotional appeal. All these things people try. Doesn't seem to get through, but one alcoholic talk to another. Do you drink like I do? Do you feel this way when you drink? After you've had a drink? Are you remorseful, bitter, ashamed? All these little things. One alcoholic can get through to another alcoholic where nobody else seems to. And that's what Bill talked about earlier. Religious convictions. That's one beautiful thing about this whole program is that you can have your idea of what your higher power is, and I can have mine. I have my right to have who I believe my higher power is, God. And you have your right. And we can all join in harmonious love. Because you know what? I'm not wrong, and you're not wrong. And we're not going to fight about it. Okay? You have your right to believe, and that is one of the things that make this. It's not a Baptist group. It's not a Jewish group. It's not what's the word I'm looking for? can't think of it right now, but it'll come to me after the meeting's over, and you might hear me yell it out. But no matter what religious denomination you want to belong to or don't belong to, we're all welcome, and we all have our own beliefs. But you know what? We keep a lot of things outside because we don't want to argue about my God is better than your God, or your God is this, or your God is that, and I have to think the way you think. No, you can have your beliefs and I can have my beliefs, and we can all join together. And that's what I love about this program. Because if it had picked one religion over another, would we all be sitting in this room together? Outline the program of action, explaining how you made a self-appraisal, how you straightened out your past, and why you are now endeavoring to be helpful to him. It is important for him to realize that your attempt to pass this on to him plays a vital part in your own recovery. Actually, he may be helping you more than you are helping him. Make it plain he is under no obligation to you, that you hope only that he will try to help other alcoholics when he escapes his own difficulties. Suggest how important it is that he place the welfare of other people ahead of his own. Make it clear that he is not under any pressure, that he needn't see you again if he doesn't want to. You should not be offended if he wants to call it off, for he has helped you more than you have helped him. If your talk has been sane, quiet, and full of human understanding, you have perhaps made a friend. Maybe you have disturbed him about the question of alcoholism. This is all to the good. The more hopeless he feels, the better. He'll be more likely to follow your suggestions.
So there's a couple of things in here that I think are important. Suggest how important it is that he place the welfare of other people ahead of his own. This is a little bit of an, kind of looking ahead, but the point being is that we're already referencing our step 12, and that is working with others. But you also want to make sure that idea is planted with him, because you're making reference to yourself as well, showing that this helping him is doing as much good, if not more good, for you than it is for him. The idea here is that he or she should know that working with others is a great, absolutely the best way to get over the drink problem. And it's something that you want to make sure that you emphasize that plays a vital role in the recovery of yourself, as well as himself or herself. Now, it's important to realize that your attempt to pass this on to him plays a vital part in your own recovery. Okay, so that, they need to see success. They need to see this in exercise and in practice, and in doing so, they can start to fit themselves in place of you. And that's a great way to do it. To say, here's an example of what it looks like in recovery, what it looks like for somebody to be sober for the period of time that I've been sober, and doing this is what's important to continue that recovery. Now, this is another thing too, is if the person isn't ready, they're not ready, and you've done your part. If they want to call it off, and just make sure that you realize that they've helped you more than you've helped them, and that's okay. That's all part of your own recovery, which is just as important here as trying to take this message to somebody else. And you're going to find success by going to other people. It just may not be this particular person. So hopefully you've gotten their interest peaked. You've kind of widened the gap here. It talks about this, the more hopeless he feels, the better. So the idea here is that you take, they want to be point A to point B. And if you make that gap a little bit wider, it's a technique of getting them to be even more curious and or more interested. And then what you do when they do show that interest is you bridge that gap and pull things back together. And in doing so, you've really, really created what they show here as being a friendship, and some success there. So the idea is to widen that gap a little bit, make them feel a little bit more desperate. then you take that desperation, bridge that gap, pull it back together, and it's a wonderful technique of bringing somebody along and and truly partnering with them and showing them that you have a solution that really works. Rob?
Yeah, and you know, a very wise man who was in this meeting tonight told me that when passing this on, it reinforces the program to me and what I need to do in order to stay sober. And that's one of the important reasons that we pass this on, because it reinforces in me. Okay. Also, we are mandated by this program to help other people, help other alcoholics. And it has been stressed in many meetings this week alone, okay, is that it's alcoholics that we're supposed to help. It's great to help other people too, yes, but we are mandated to help other alcoholics. Why? Because when we help other alcoholics, it is reinforcing the program in me. Okay. Do I have to retake the steps every day? No. But if I'm helping other people, it helps me to remember that, oh yeah, I got to keep my spiritual connection tight, or else if it starts to separate, when will the obsession of the mind return? Find out. Do I want to keep my spiritual connection tight? Okay. Yes, you're right, Mary B. You keep those fingers together. And that's what this program is about, passing it on to another alcoholic. Remember that, passing it on to another alcoholic. Yes, we do help other people. Okay. We are kind and considerate to everybody. Okay. But it is important that we work with other alcoholics, like other alcoholics have worked with us. You know, when I came into the fellowship after 9 months, somebody came up to me and said that they know somebody that'll take me through the big book. And I thought, why would anybody want to do that with me? They don't know me. Why would they do that? Today, I understand why they would do it. And every time I got together with this gentleman, I thanked him for taking time out of his day to work with me. And he kept saying to me, Rob, I'm getting more out of this than you are. I didn't understand it at that time, but it took me a long time to realize that, because, you know, at that time, I didn't feel like I was worthy of it for somebody to take time out of their day. But you know what? Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, getting together and going through the book. This man was, you know, to me, you know, I can't thank him enough. You know, he's passed away now, but you know, thankfully that man instilled some disciplines in me that I can give to other people. Your candidate may give reasons why he need not follow all the program. He may rebel at the thought of a drastic house cleaning, which requires discussion with other people. Do not contradict such views. Tell him you once felt as he does, but you doubt whether you would have made much progress had you not taken action. On your first visit, tell him about the fellowship with Alcoholics Anonymous. If he shows interest, lend him a copy of this book.
Yeah, and notice that Rob said a copy, not your copy. Obviously, we've talked about this a few times, and it is actually important that you don't give him your book, because your book is probably marked up and tabbed and highlighted and etc. to the point that it doesn't make sense to somebody else. It only makes sense to you. But obviously, you want to keep your book to yourself, because that's what you use. So a book, somebody. My first sponsor gave me a book, and it was brand new, and I was able to start marking it up for myself from that standpoint. But so there's going to be the potential for pushback. I think to a person in this room, we can all raise our hand and say that there was some resistance in the beginning, some probably stronger than others. With regard to the program and adhering to it, listening to it, hearing it, feeling it, etc. And this idea of it looks rather daunting when you really sit down and look at the steps, but that's the part that you really that a sponsor can come in and really start to make things a lot easier. this house cleaning that has to happen, etc. Those are things that are foreign to somebody at the beginning, and it looked insurmountable to me in that, one, I wasn't really sure I could ever stop drinking because I didn't have the willpower to stop drinking. I had found that out. I knew I had a problem. I knew this program was a solution for a lot of people, but I wasn't sure if it was going to work for me because I wasn't still bought into the whole idea of it. And I was glad that I finally found a Keystone Group that really helped turn things around for me. But I, that first step is up to him or her, and et cetera. Talking about the fellowship, I think it's important at this point that you define what is a good fellowship versus a not good fellowship, and we all kind of know what that is. The idea here is that we've got like-minded people that come together with a solution, that talk about the solution, and actually promote the big book and the program that is outlined in it. It's really important for that type of fellowship to prevail, and certainly one that has a lot of progress. Well, presents itself in a way that you get positive progress going forward. Rob?
Yeah, tell the newcomer, okay, where are the good meetings? Okay, where am I going to where are you going to hear the message? Okay, where should I go? What meetings should I go to? It, help them out this way. You know, show them where, the good people are. What to look out for. Just experience strength and hope. And that's what it's all. Explain the fellowship to them, and what it's all about. What is the difference between the fellowship and the program? Because I came into the fellowship and was told, welcome to the program. As I listened to speaker after speaker talk about how drunk they got and how all of a sudden they showed up into the rooms and they got sober. They didn't tell me how they got sober, but they just, but I heard about how much they drank, etc. Now, is this a good message for people to hear? It's entertaining at times, okay, and keeps me out of the bars for an hour, but it's not teaching me how to get that spiritual experience that is going to relieve me of the obsession of the mind. Okay, so we have to help people out this way. We have to let them know what meetings should they be going to. There's thousands upon thousands of meetings on Zoom. What are the good ones? Which ones do you recommend for people? Okay, so keep that in mind. We're on the top of page 95, everybody. Unless your friend wants to talk further about himself, where you're welcome. Give him a chance to think it over. If you do stay, let him steer the conversation in any direction he likes. Sometimes a new man is anxious to proceed at once, and you may be tempted to let him do so. This is sometimes a mistake. If he has trouble later, he is likely to say you rushed him. You will be most successful with alcoholics if you do not exhibit any passion for crusade or reform. Never talk down to an alcoholic from any moral or spiritual hilltop. Simply lay out the kit of spiritual tools for his inspection. Offer him friendship and fellowship. Tell him that if he wants to get well, he will do anything to help.
Yeah, so this is really kind of there's some splits in the road, if then this road, if this, then that road, that kind of thing. So it's really kind of giving you some examples with regard to how to proceed. Once you've basically got the person's attention, you're sitting down and talking with them, and here's what to do. Now that you've told your story, now that you've gone into detail about how you've recovered and that spiritual experience that you had, and how you have carried this message forward and how that's been helpful to you. let them start to talk, let them start to kind of connect some of the dots and everything. Again, you're trying to persuade them through involvement at this point, and getting them to that point. And at this point, you've earned the right to advance because they're actually talking back with you. Uh, be real careful. You can kind of test the waters. If somebody's anxious to get started, I'm not going to be the one to say, no, you can't do that. I'm going to try uh, introduce the book, introduce the program, introduce the ideas that are associated with the solution. But I'm going to try and temper that a little bit with regard to getting, let's not get all the way to steps, 6, 7, and 8 or anything like that within the first sitting and that kind of thing. We've really got to work on that first couple of 3 steps and really start to get that idea home. But I think that there's some education that has to happen before that. So you really want to make sure that you're bringing the person along slowly and methodically, because that's what's going to win the race, as they say. Um, you don't want to have somebody get. I had one person I was working with that would get to a point and would just get so overly excited and just like, this is it. I'm cured. I could just see that this was going to be a recipe for failure because they were just overly excited about where they were in the steps, and it was really kind of that misguided in exuberance or enthusiasm. Um, so no crusades, no you getting up and pontificating and beating your chest about anything religious and or spiritual in that regard. Just be very, very nonchalant and easygoing with it. There's an important point that Rob had already made and they make in this book now, and that is never talk down to an alcoholic from any moral or spiritual hilltop. Just let them know what the program is. Tell them that you're willing to walk with them side by side through this program, and that will be the way that you try to do the solution. Obviously, at this point, you've probably started a friendship, and um, and you basically are making yourself available at this point to do anything to help. Rob?
Yeah, on page 25, they talk about the spiritual kit of tools. And on page 25, it says, when therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not ever dreamed. Now, I love how Bill always talks about, the spiritual kit of tools that he has are power tools, because regular tools just won't cut it for him. And it makes so much sense to me, that we need, power tools, because what do we lack in our life? Power. Okay. If he is not interested in your solution, or if he expects you to act only as a banker for his financial difficulty or a nurse for his sprees, you may have to drop him until he changes his mind. This he may do after he gets hurt some more.
Yeah, this idea is not to waste your time. We come back to this. We've talked about this a couple of times. You've got a lot of people out there that are in need of help, and this just may not be the person. Again, remember that this person is helping you more than you're probably helping them at this point, and that is a success based on your own recovery. But at the same time, you don't want to push, you don't want to be a crusader, you don't want to goad or pull along this person. If they're not ready, then they're not ready. If they're not willing, then they're not willing. And you just have to remember that you can make yourself available. Just be a good friend, and hope that at the later date that they may want to get your help. So just remember that this it can go either way, and that's okay. Regardless of which way it goes, it's been a beneficial meeting for yourself. No matter what, it's been a good thing for you. Rob?
I want to relate to an experience that I've had. I try to get along with everybody and try to be a nice guy. Okay. People, not everybody in AA has the same goals, aspirations, outlooks as we do. Okay. And there are some people who will take advantage. When they talk about being a banker, some people will go around to different groups, and what they do is they borrow money until they can't get any more money, and then they go off to another group. Boundaries. We do have boundaries. Do not be taken advantage of. Okay. And we are God's people. Okay. We don't bow before anybody. Okay. Boundaries, people. There are some people that don't have the good heart that we have. So please be aware of it. I had what I thought was a friend of mine. And, he was always in one predicament to another. Oh, I just need a couple of dollars here. I just need a couple of dollars there. Okay. Well, when you stop giving money to people, they they stop communicating with you. So please keep that in mind. Okay. Boundaries. If he is sincerely interested and wants to see you again, ask him to read this book in the interval. After doing that, he must decide for himself whether he wants to go on. He should not be pushed or prodded by you, his wife, or his friends. If he is to find God, the desire must come from within.
Absolutely. This is really important, and it has to be that they want this. And that's one of those ingredients for success for them, and you know this all too well, and that is that you really have to want this. That's a really that's kind of a stepping off point, that you really want it. Doesn't mean that you're going to be perfect. Doesn't mean that you're not going to make mistakes and everything. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that you really have to, deep down inside, want this. You want to stop drinking. You want to recover. You want this solution, and you're ready and willing to do whatever it takes to get there. It's just absolutely it's the foundation of recovery. You really have to want it, and that's really what they're trying to say here. Don't push it. You might bring up the worksheets that are available, and see if they want to start working through the worksheets and stuff as they work through the book for the first time. That's a great way to see if they're really willing to put in some of the effort that's necessary to learn. I find that the person that wants to go through the worksheets and stay with the worksheets is usually a good candidate for recovery. Rob?
Yeah, because if they're not going to put any work in, they're going to get nothing out.
Right.
And, you know, I love how the book talks about we plant the seed. We hope that it takes root. If it doesn't take root, not meant to be at that time. Okay. But we're there for people. When they're ready to do the work, we're ready to go through to help them as much as we can. Okay. So keep that in mind. If he thinks he can do the job in some other way or prefers some other spiritual approach, encourage him to follow his own conscience. We have no monopoly on God. We merely have an approach that worked with us. But point out that we alcoholics have much in common, and that you like in any case to be friendly. Let it go at that.
Yeah, and this is a good point here. It's a great way to just tell them that you're available. Tell them that their approach may be different than yours, and that's okay. And encourage him to follow his own conscience. So the idea here is that gives them the freedom to move on. Sometimes they are like, well, if this person is it's not pushing, not pulling. Maybe it's a little safer for me to go ahead and reach out and see if this is going to work for me, because this person has always told me that I can leave at any point in time. There's no, no hard requirement here. And so I think that this is another one of those areas where you pique their interest because they're like, well, there's a bit of safety here because I can go my own way anytime I want. Um, just make sure that you reinforce the solution that helped you, the program that's in the book, and that what you're trying to do is be a partner with them with this program and leave it at that. Rob?
Yeah, remember, if somebody thinks that they have another way of doing it, they're not gonna fully commit to this program. Okay, they're gonna always in the back of their mind, think, well, I could do it the easier, softer way, or there's another way that I can try it. And whenever there's any doubt, okay, it's like the old, I still think maybe I can control and enjoy my drinking. Well, if I feel that way, I'm not ready, because I still think I can beat the game. Page 96, everybody. Do not be discouraged if your prospect does not respond at once. Search out another alcoholic and try again. You are sure to find someone desperate enough to accept with eagerness what you offer. We find it a waste of time to keep chasing a man who cannot or will not work with you. If you leave such a person alone, he may soon become convinced that he cannot recover by himself. To spend too much time on any one situation is to deny some other alcoholic an opportunity to live and be happy. One of our fellowship failed entirely with his first half dozen prospects. He often says that if he had continued to work on them, he might have deprived many others who have since recovered their chance.
Yeah, so this is, I highlighted the entire paragraph here because it's so important to the individual that is recovered and trying to work with another person. The idea here is that if they're not willing to do their part, don't waste your time on them, and that's okay not to waste your time. If they're not ready at this point, just go on and find another person and just keep working with the next person and the next person, because in there somewhere somebody's going to be ready for this program, and you're going to find some success with working with that particular person. This person that you have been working with that has shown that they're not that interested may come back later on, and that's a good thing. The idea here and this is as a reminder, that you should do everything that we've talked about up until this point. If the person is willing to work with you, then continue on and you're off to the races. If not, then stop and just let them know that you're available in the future, anytime they want to talk, and then move on to the next person. It's an important thing for the person. This is an important note for the person that has recovered and is trying to bring this message to another alcoholic. Rob?
Yeah, that the first six half dozen prospects was Bill W. His first six failed. We talk about Jim on page 35. We worked with him each time he wanted it. So they worked with him. They continued. We can't force this on other people. They must want it. If they don't want it, they're not going to do the work. So let's continue on. Suppose now you are making your second visit to a man. He has read this volume, says he is prepared to go through with the 12 steps of the program of recovery. Having had the experience yourself, you can give him much practical advice. Let him know you are available if he wishes to make a decision and tell his story, but do not insist upon it if he prefers to consult someone else.
Sure. So if they're willing to go through the program, irrespective of whether it's you or another person, hopefully they find another strong recovered alcoholic, and are able to go through it. Back in the time when this book was written, they didn't really talk about sponsors, but if you're not the best fit as a sponsor, you've done your work, you've gotten them, you've captured them in a way that they are now interested and ready and willing to go through the program, and that's a great thing. That's an excellent place to be, irrespective of whether they want to work with you or with somebody else. And it may be that you decide that maybe this isn't the best fit as well, and that's okay. It's a two-way street when it comes to a good fit to working with another person and and maybe you've got somebody in mind that maybe they could work with that would be a better fit. And this is the point in time that you might suggest that if they're indicating that they want to work with somebody else. And don't take it personally. This is just one of those things that happens. And, for example, my first sponsor is not my sponsor anymore, and we're still great friends. Just didn't, his style and personality just wasn't the type of thing that I needed, especially once I'd recovered going forward. So this is now a point in time where you've got, you either are going to work with this person or you pass them along to somebody else. Rob?
I love this next story coming up, so I'm going to read it. He may be broke and homeless. If he is, you might try to help him about getting a job or give him a little financial assistance. But you should not deprive your family or creditors of money they should have. Perhaps you'll want to take the man into your home for a few days. Discretion. Be certain he will be welcomed by your family and that he is not trying to impose upon you for money, connections, or shelter. Permit that and you only harm him. You will be making it possible for him to be insincere.
You may be aiding in his destruction rather than his recovery, and that's another point that is important here. And that is that you are not an enabler for his financial and potential homelessness needs. I've got one. A person I'm working with right now that is without a job and is essentially living on the last of his resources and doesn't know what he's going to do, is not willing to go out and find a job. I'm not sure what's going to happen to him next. But one of the things I'm not offering is that they come live with my wife and I, etc. So it's a tough situation. But it's really it's really a case by case basis, and it's one of those things that you've got to be strong with, because that's the other part of this, is that they're not supposed to be a hanger on and essentially draining your resources for what you have to do to take care of yourselves, because the idea here isn't, you're not supposed to help somebody else at the demise of what your responsibilities are to other family and friends and creditors, etc. It's an important point to make, that nobody in this book has ever suggested that you sacrifice those type of things for somebody else. Rob?
It amazes me that Dr. Bob, two relatively young kids, brought people into his home. They talk about he may be broken, homeless. I put a little blurb in the chat about Eddie Riley, who, chased Dr. Bob's wife around the kitchen table with a butcher knife. The things that they did the early mid 1930s, when they got sober. It just astounds me what lengths they went to. Bill and Lois, they didn't have any kids, so it wasn't, you didn't have to worry about them. But somebody committed suicide in Bill's house. They come home from an evening out and there's a dead body, Bill Cousins, a nice little Canadian boy, who kills himself. So these are things that they put up with back then. These days we don't do things like that, but it just astounds me the lengths that they went to at that time. And my hats are off to them. I certainly wouldn't do it, you know, but all to them. Leo, are we ready to bring in the incredible Bill S. from New Jersey?
We are. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, this is Bill S., alcoholic from New Jersey. Thanks a lot, guys. Good job today. This is a good chapter here. Um, Basically, what this is talking about, Bill's giving us some suggestions how we're supposed to be working with other alcoholics. Right in the beginning, where we started, it said, if you are satisfied that he is a real alcoholic, begin to dwell on the hopeless feature of the malady. Back in the beginning, they used to qualify people, and they had to have some sort of proof or indication that a person was an alcoholic. You can use page 44, where they have those statements there that people turn into questions. You could use those two questions to ask the person, when you honestly want to, can you quit entirely? Or if when you're drinking, can you control the amount you drink? This way you could find out whether they're an alcoholic. Because just because somebody walks into a meeting, that doesn't automatically mean they're an alcoholic. They could be a hard drinker. They could be just a homeless person looking for a free cup of coffee and a donut or whatever. So they used to qualify the people, and they used to make sure and satisfy themselves that they were an alcoholic. If they weren't really satisfied that they were an alcoholic, they would move on to somebody else. And again, what Bill's doing here, he's giving us different suggestions on how to deal with somebody when somebody first comes in. He tells us, that on the top of just to tell them exactly what happened to you. In other words, you're supposed to tell the person that you first meet and you're first dealing with what you went through, how you drank, how you tried to stop drinking and you couldn't, how alcohol started to destroy your life. And you came into AA and you were able to stop drinking by following along with the program that AA suggests for us. So that's what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to be telling them what to do. We're supposed to be telling them what happened to us. This way, if the person wants what we got, they can do what we did. We're not supposed to be ordering people around. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people in AA that seem to have control issues, and all they want to do is order somebody around and tell people what to do. And it doesn't say that anywhere in this book. This book says we're supposed to tell people what we did, what happened to us. That way, this is a program of attraction. That way we can attract people into here, and they'll be attracted to doing what we did. And there's a ton of different information in here, and he talks about on the bottom of page 94, on your first visit, tell them about the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. We're not just supposed to tell people about the program, we're also supposed to explain the fellowship to them. I think Rob mentioned this a little bit. Tell them where there's a good meeting. Tell them where there's Zoom meetings. Tell them who they can go talk to. Go to this meeting on Tuesday. Go to this meeting on Wednesday. This is where there's a lot of sober people, and they'll be willing to help you. We're supposed to show them where the good stuff. And that's on your first visit. When you're first visiting with somebody, we're supposed to not just explain the program to them. We're supposed to explain how the fellowship works. And then it says, lend him your copy of this book. Don't give him your book because they're liable to disappearing and never see your book again. You got all your notes in your book and years to write down in there. Give them a new book. A lot of people can keep a bunch of new books in the trunk of their car. Give them a brand new book. When they wrote this book, the books weren't out yet when the book was written. So they didn't know that people were going to be walking around with books that have 1,000 notes written all over them and highlighted and people's phone numbers and all that other kind of stuff. So if you give somebody your book, you might not see it again because they might disappear. Alcoholics have a way of falling off the face of the earth. So the book is going to go with them. So basically, again, Bill's constantly telling us what we should do when we're dealing with a new person. And there's a lot of information in here on your first visit. When you're first visiting with somebody, that's what you're supposed to do. And then he talks on page 96, suppose you're making your second visit. He tells us what to do. And it says he has read this volume and is prepared to go through with the 12 steps of the program. You should ask the person to read the book before you start taking them through it, but that may not work today. Back in the 1930s, when this book came out, people didn't have internets, they didn't have video games, they didn't have smartphones. Most people didn't even have a phone in their home. They didn't have TVs. So what they used to do, they used to read books. That was basically all they could do. Today, people don't read like they used to read back then. Today, everybody's playing with their phone, walking around staring at it, or sitting on the internet somewhere, or doing whatever they're doing. So that may not work today. Just having had the experience yourself, you can give them much practical advice. In other words, they'll tell you in the rooms, when this is not a program of advice, this book says if you've been through this 12-step process, you're supposed to give newcomers advice on how to get through it. We're supposed to give new people advice. That's what this book says. And it says, having had the experience yourself. What experience? The experience of going through the 12 steps and having a spiritual awakening or a spiritual experience. Then we're supposed to give people advice on how we got through it and what they need to do to get through it. So basically what Bill's doing, he's telling us how to deal with somebody new and what we're supposed to do with them. And the reason that we do this, like Rob mentioned, it keeps our sobriety stronger. It makes our sobriety better. When you try to walk somebody through this process, you're actually doing the process for yourself again. And the more you do this, the more it gets hammered into your brain, and the more you'll understand it, and the easier it is to make it work for you. That's pretty much all I got. Thanks a lot for letting me share.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay, we'll do the serenity prayer and open it up.
God, grant me this serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.